Hi, Vandana Shiva.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for giving us a bit of your time. It's very nice and it's a real pleasure to meet you. So, you are a philosopher, a physicist, well known for your commitment, your social and ecological commitment, and your activism on gender issue, ecofeminism, of course, sustainable agriculture, organic farming. My first question is maybe a bit silly, but not that much actually. How do you do when you are on a trip to eat healthily? I mean, wherever you are in France, USA, Japan, China, do you easily find what you want to eat?
Well, 20, 30 years ago, it wasn't easy, and that meant I just didn't eat. So
Really? You didn't eat?
No, I didn't eat. I drink water, I eat a bit of salad.
Okay.
But now there is a very strong organic movement everywhere. And I don't get invited by Monsanto, I get invited by the organic movement. So I get the best food no matter where I am now.
I have some good place for you in Rochelle if you want. So, growing our own organic food and being sovereign on what we eat, you said it's a kind of a revolutionary act. Would you say that each new vegetable garden, each new seed putting into soil is a step forward to the end of capitalism?
Well, capitalism looks a very mild word to me. Given how
Capitalist-
bad
yes.
things are,
Capitalist patriarchy.
no, I'd even take it further because, you see, capitalism came 200 years after England had plundered India and Spain had plundered Latin America. So there wasn't a capitalism from 1600. It was pure imperialism and colonialism. So coming from India, for me, capitalism is a face wash to a very ugly face of a very violent war against the planet, again against people that preceded it, which is what allowed accumulation of wealth and the transfer of wealth. So I have gone through, our country has gone through that horrible process. And so what I would say is the rule of the poison cartel, which is what the planet is facing as the most serious threat, and this poison cartel is the same as the war machinery, is the same as what's controlling media, is the same as what's controlling our research and science, and it is becoming even more life-threatening. We already are at a brink. This would be the push. So if I was to look at planting that seed and starting the next garden, I would say it's a step away from the precipice.
Okay, I see.
You're that much safer
Yes.
from the collapse.
Would you say that we can make revolution through food?
We are making a revolution through food. In my view, no matter which indicator you look at in terms of, what is a revolution? A revolution is rapid change on a large scale. Rapid change on a large scale, just look at the number of people who are growing gardens and growing their own food. Look at the way seed saving, which when I started was considered crazy and unnecessary when I started Navdanya 30 years ago. Today, everywhere you find seed savers. If you look at the number of people starting organic farming, and you look at the number of people eating organic, it's a revolution already. And if we become more committed to it, we collaborate deeper between eaters and producers, we make this central to our education system and our health system and our economic revival, because every country right now needs economic revival. I've been told repeatedly about France's election that unemployed youth were the big question mark about which way they'll vote, because when you're treated like rubbish by a society, that's when you become more vulnerable to manipulation by forces of hate. Because that's when you feel, oh, yes, maybe it's the migrants who took my job, not the corporations. So the corporations love it when hate grows in society. And I always say, the money machine needs the hate machine. And the earth, as an ecosystem, needs our loving care.
I don't know if you followed a little bit the French election, but we didn't talk about ecology at all. And I'm a bit skeptic about the fact that our new French president will put organic farming or permaculture at the center of his agricultural policies. But we need, and I don't know if you agree with that, a rise in consciousness. But how can we deal with that? I mean, shall we accompany the natural end of this cartel, as you call it, running the risk of arriving too late in the middle of devastation? Or shall we hope for a large-scale revolution, running the risk of creating chaos, because capitalism is not this kind of guy who let himself be pushed around? So is there a middle ground for you?
Well, the first thing is that there is a middle ground in the sense, you know, I've done my PhD in quantum theory, and in quantum theory it is an either and or. There's always the and. And this mutually exclusive categories is very much a construct of the mechanical mind, which is what the money machine needs. It is not an accident that no person who makes it to electoral races today talks about food or the environment. Because those are the two things that the money machine needs to predate on.
Yes.
They can't, you know, if they let people choose good food, they'll collapse. If they allow people to become aware of how much the earth gives us and that we are Earth citizens, we'll just turn our back to their lies that you need the next rubbishy junk food, you need from the bad Coke to the zero Coke to the next name and the next. I mean, they keep playing games with our lives. So if people become rooted in a way, there is no way they'll become part of that game. And for sure, those who make big money, 1%, don't want to see this happen. I think wherever we are, first we have to check, and this is my check. I check what is it that I can do. No matter what the context, what is it that I can do? That's how I answer to myself. I can sell saving seeds. Monsanto might be trying to manipulate international law, but I'll save the seeds. But I will not give up on our government. So I worked with my government. I said, don't get under their pressure. Remember what seed is. Remember we have farmers. Remember they have rights. So I helped write the laws of India. Today, there are elements of government that are being hijacked 30 years later. Again, we're working. I just got a letter. Our parliament is intervening and saying, we wrote these laws, you can't dismantle it, you're just the executive. So there is a balance of power in our institution and we must bring it to bear. Most importantly, the crisis is so severe that if we tell the story in a way that reaches people, and it doesn't have to reach through mainstream media, it reaches people through media like yours. And if it resonates with the three things people are feeling deeply, people are feeling something is wrong. People are feeling I have no power. People are feeling I am losing the basis of living. You bring all that together in simple acts that people can engage in every day. They then put the pressure on the local government, on the regional government, on the national government, and that's how the chain reaction starts.
So you think we need an enlightened minority to change the world? You don't think that a lot of people, a big crowd, can better change the things?
Well, Margaret Mead had always said, do not underestimate that a small group of well-meaning and thinking people can bring change. Is the only thing that ever has. Right now we have a very organized group of lobbyists who are bringing change in the wrong way. It's not that they are not small, they're a minority. The only difference is they're a minority that hides. We can be a minority that's open and say, come join this joy. Join this joyful revolution.
Yes. Two last questions, because after you have lunch, I think. Where are you going to have lunch? You know
I
that?
think across the street.
Across the streets?
Yeah.
Okay. So two last questions. The first question is, what is your thought about barter and local currencies?
Well, you see, money was made as a convenient shortcut to barter. Instead of always carrying my sack of wheat for a pair of shoes, I promised to pay the bearer the equivalent of.
Yes.
So later, when it was convenient, one could make that exchange. I think we need more and more barter because it is the only currency of real exchange of real things. for two reasons right now. The first is money is now more and more removed from small, real things. So you have digital money. And digital money has the capacity to multiply itself. And therefore we are being ruled by a cartel, which is financial. There's a poison cartel destroying our food. There's a financial cartel, and they're all linked into one. And that financial cartel is taking more and more of the real wealth of people out of their hands and putting it into this fictitious world. But the second reason we need more local currency, more barter, is because we have to reclaim money as a means to higher ends in a time where money has been made an end in itself for a handful of people to rule over the planet and rule over our lives. They have turned money making into the new religion, and they're playing God. And I think there are deeper faiths in our world, and the deepest faith is we are part of the earth.
A very last personal question. How do you deal with fame? Because you are idolized around the world for your ideas. Aren't you afraid of being too much an icon?
Well, I don't, I am the same today as I was 30 years ago and 50 years ago when nobody knew who I am, because I work with the same compass, I work with the same commitments. And I might be well known, but when I relate to people, I relate to them as fellow human beings on this beautiful earth. No matter what else happens, for me, every person who's relating to me is a beautiful person.
Thank you. Thank you very